Blog Talk Radio.
There's a mystery lurking the forested areas of the world. Many have seen something, but what is it? Are they seeing known animals? They claim they walk upright, like a human. There are so many eyewitnesses. Can they all be wrong? Is someone just playing a trick on people? Or is it possible a large bipedal being could exist in the forests of the world? You have a decision to make. Do you believe it exists? These are the topics we discuss on Sasquatch Watch Radio. All right. I'm hoping the show is up and running. Is that you, Bruce?
It is.
Okay. They were having some kind of technical difficulties. I told them of all nights this could happen. It just has to happen tonight.
Well, are they gonna compensate us, Billy?
Well, I don't know. What are they going to compensate us? They charge us when we don't get squat.
Sounds like a heck of a deal.
Yeah, ain't that a deal? That's like the typical Bigfoot conference, right? Anyway, what I'm going to have to do, Bruce, is I'm going to have to put you on hold. Well, in other words, if you can keep talking, okay, I'm going to skip out of here and go pull Cliff in on my two-way feature. So, right. Because I had to call in, that's why I may sound different. I couldn't use Skype. Skype isn't even working on the platform tonight, so I had to use my regular phone. So.
See, and Billy, you got on my case because I didn't have Skype, and your Skype's not even working.
Well, trust me, it ain't got nothing to do with Skype. It's got to do with Blog Talk Radio. It's the feature, the way they've got it tied in. I mean, because everything's not working tonight. So.
Oh, great.
All right. So, anyway, I am going to call Cliff and get him in here. So, if you want to keep everybody busy while I'm gone, I will be back shortly.
All right. I don't have much to work with here. You've got Long Island Yeti in the chat room, and I mean, what can I do with that?
Well, I understand, but you're just gonna have to work with what you have to work with.
All right, Billy.
All right, I'll be back.
That's like asking a one-legged man to run the 50-yard dash. I mean, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of Sasquatch Watch Radio. I was talking to a friend of mine, Doug Waller. He's currently writing a book, and we had an interesting conversation last night. I guess he's putting together this book with some help. It's his first book. It's going to be roughly about 100 pages, and he's hoping to have it completed by Creature Weekend. So that's within another 6 weeks or so. We were talking about what's going to be in the book, and he said that it's primarily going to be a lot of sighting accounts that have happened at Salt Fork State Park. So it should be pretty interesting. I'm anxiously waiting for its publication myself, although, 100 pages, that's really only 50 pages front and back. So it's not really I don't know if that's really a book. That's more of a pamphlet, I think. And you don't really publish that. I think you just photocopy it. But anyway, we'll call it a book because, he's calling it a book, so we'll call it a book. But that should be coming out soon. And while we have a moment here, I think I'll just go over the upcoming conference schedule. We have April 6th, The Unexplained, Bigfoot, UFOs, and Paranormal. That's going to be at the Crossroads Branch Library in Cambridge, Ohio, and that starts at 10 a.m. And there's a bunch of vendors that are going to be there, and I believe Doug Waller, who's putting it on, is going to have a couple speakers. So that should be really interesting. And then we have April 27th, a couple of conferences. We have the 6th annual Boru Butler Paranormal Conference. That's from 10 to 7 p.m. at the Tanglewood Senior Center. And also that weekend, we have the Chautauqua Bigfoot Conference. That's being held April 26th, 27th, and 28th, and that's going to be in Mayville, New York. And last but not least, we have Creature Weekend coming up. That's May 3rd, 4th, and 5th. It's an all-star lineup once again. We're really excited to have Ron Moorhead, who's going to be speaking Friday night. And then on Saturday, we have Scott Nelson. Scott is a cryptolinguist. He worked for many years for the Navy, and he's going to be talking about his analysis of the Bigfoot vocalizations he's heard, and his work trying to decipher it, because he thinks that there's a kind of a language there. So that'll be interesting to hear what he has to say about that. And then, of course, Billy Willard and Doug Waller will be speaking, and David Paulides, who will be talking about his work with the missing 411. If you haven't heard about it, it's pretty interesting. He was just on Coast to Coast on Sunday night, I believe. But he spent the last, 3 or 4 years putting together a lot of case studies regarding missing people in national and state forests throughout North America, and he's come up with some pretty interesting theories. Some of these disappearances have a lot of similarities. So he's going to be talking about that. Now, Dave has also written a book called The Hooper Project and Tribal Bigfoot. So he's a pretty seasoned Bigfoot researcher, and we're pretty excited to have him speaking at Creature Weekend. And last but not least, we have Pat Spain. Now, Pat was the host of the Peace Hunter series that was on the Nat Geo channel. And if you followed his adventures, he traveled all over the world. He went to Sumatra. He was looking for, I think, some sort of orang pendek, I guess that's what they call it. It's their version of Bigfoot. It's a smaller creature, but, bipedal, hairy. And he's going to be talking about not only his research looking for the orang pendek, but he's also going to share some insights about what it's like both in front of the camera and behind the camera, because there's a lot that goes on to put on one of these reality shows. And I guess our guest tonight, Cliff Barackman, might be able to speak to that as well. So I forget what the ratio is, but it's an extremely large amount of footage that's actually shot versus what's shown on TV. I think for one of the episodes there was, if you put the footage end to end, I think there was 3 days worth of footage, but they only showed 44 minutes worth. So there's a lot that goes on. There's a lot that ends up on the cutting room floor. So,
okay, I'm back, Bruce.
Okay, Billy.
And let me make sure we've got Mr. Cliff Barackman with us. Are you there, Cliff?
Yes, sir, I am.
I've got it. Wow, what a trick! That was a little bit of a mess. I apologize, Cliff, that we had some problems here in the studio, but it happens from time to time.
Well, certainly. I'm a Bigfooter. I'm used to things going wrong. No worries at all.
And I'll introduce you to my co-host. We call him the Creature Seeker.
Hey, Cliff, how you doing?
Hello. Should I call you Creature for short?
Yeah, or Mr. Seeker. Cliff, I met you, I think it was in 2009 at Beachfoot. And then a couple years back, I think I saw your presentation on, it was when they changed the venue for Beachfoot to that other park. And you had given a presentation on, it was the Silver Star, was that the Silver Star Bigfoot?
Possibly.
Sighting?
Yeah, I think I talked about Silver Star and the work I've done on it, and then I think I previewed the Georgia dashcam video there before it was released, if I remember right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, but I could be wrong. I don't know. My memory is pretty elastic as far as like time frames go, and kind of approximate nowadays, which is why I write things down, of course. Yeah.
Well, it was a pretty. I remember your presentation was. I was very impressed with it. So we're glad to have you as a guest on the show.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. It's always fun to do presentations. My own little classroom.
Now you have some experience as a teacher, right, Cliff?
Yeah, I have 14 or so years as a classroom teacher, teaching a wide.
Okay, are you still here, Bruce?
I'm here.
All right, I don't know what's going on. I got disconnected. The whole show got disconnected.
I'm here. Well, where are we at, Billy?
I need to go ahead and call Cliff back. It was really funny. I know everybody can hear us, but it was really funny. I told Cliff, because Windows popped up on my screen and said that the show had disconnected me. So I told Cliff, I said, I apologize. I'm so sorry. He goes, don't worry about it, Billy. It's just like Bigfoot. He says, you got electronic equipment out there and you see a Bigfoot, all of a sudden your batteries go dead. That's all. Yeah, exactly. He said, but don't worry about it. I'm just going to go get a beer.
Wait, is Cliff our guest or is it Bobo?
So anyway, let me see if I can get him called back in here. That's hilarious.
Well, we have 61 people in the chat room. So while you're getting him online, then maybe I'll do a shout out, because who knows how much longer the chat room will be up.
Well, I'm hoping this is going to happen pretty quickly here.
So we have Bigfoot Babe, Bigfoot Girly, Bipedalist, Brian Jeffries, Buckeye Squatcher.
There's Cliff. We've got Cliff back.
Cliff.
Hello again. I didn't know who that was. A totally different number this time.
Well, that's because the Skype feature's actually working now. I figured maybe we'll try this. Maybe we'll have better luck.
Well, good. Good luck with that.
Yeah. All right.
Cliff, you're talking about your experience as a teacher, 14 years.
That's correct, yeah. I've taught 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. I did a year as a Title I teacher where I taught 1st grade through 8th grade math to various small groups. I worked at a homeless children's school, a variety of private institutions, and as well as charter schools. So I've kind of, run the gamut, everything from inner city, like Latino barrio in Southern California, to high-end charter school up in the suburbs of Portland, Oregon. So I've got a fair amount of experience with all sorts of different people, different demographics, different geographics. So that sort of thing really led to me a lot of experience for communicating on television, which I'm very, very thankful for as well.
Oh, that's great. Now, how does a city guy like you get involved with Bigfoot?
How does a guy like me get involved in Bigfoots?
Well, it seems like you're a city guy. Is that true? No?
I'm a city guy? Well, sure. But at the same time, I think that whatever you whatever you grow up around, you kind of rebel against in some ways. So having grown up in Long Beach, California, I spent as much time as I could trying to get out of town because, I may have lived in the city, but you don't really choose where you're born. So it took me a long time, but I eventually achieved escape velocity and landed in Portland, Oregon about 5 years ago. I've lived a variety of other places, of course, San Francisco and Santa Rosa, a little town called Chimacum, Washington. I've popped around a bit here and there, but Portland's where I've settled, man, and I can't imagine living anywhere else. If I didn't like Portland, I really don't know where I would end up living. I'm just like roaming like some sort of strange hobo somewhere. I have no idea.
Portland is a great town. I've visited Portland many times, and I just find it very quaint. And it's got a pretty cool nightlife as well.
Yeah, it's not Seattle, it's not Los Angeles. It's a few steps down from both those towns as far as crazy stuff to do and live acts on great nights. Everybody, like all the big acts, drop by Portland during the middle of the week and then go to Seattle for the weekend because that's where the real money is. But Portland's, in my opinion, I mean, this is just me saying so, I like Portland a lot better than any other town I've ever been in, particularly here in the Pacific Northwest. I do feel right at home here. There's a lot of strange people and quirky personalities and weird festivals. Bigfoots are literally right outside of town, 20-minute drive and in potential habitat. It's well situated. If there's a sighting in British Columbia, I can get there in 4 or 5 hours. If there's one in Northern California, same thing. Of course, I don't even need to go that far. So much stuff happens just in my own neighborhood that I could be, the most recent sighting or the most recent one that was reported to me. Let me rephrase it. What I'd like to say is the sighting most recently reported to me was just yesterday. I found out about a kid seeing one on the Sandy River. The Sandy River is like less than 10 miles from my house.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I love Portland. I wouldn't give it up for anything, really.
Now, did you get interested in Bigfoot when you moved to Portland, or did you have an interest before that?
I've been interested in Bigfoots more or less for as long as I can remember. My earliest memory of me being aware of Bigfoots was when I was 4 or 5 years old, and certainly when I was 7 or 8 years old watching In Search of and all that stuff in the 1970s. But I just loved monsters back then. What little boy doesn't love monsters? I was really into Godzilla movies and all that other sort of stuff too. But Bigfoot was a little bit special for me in some ways, and it was actually when I was in college that I became interested as an amateur scientist, I guess, in this field, and started doing my own work because I read some papers written by people who it wasn't like a sighting report sort of thing. I didn't stumble across John Green's stuff for a little while after that. My first exposure was the Halpin and Ames book, which was a collection of those papers presented in British Columbia in the late 70s at the very, very first Sasquatch symposium sort of thing. That's the book that hooked me. And then from there I hopped over to Dr. Krantz's book, which was newly published at that time. And then the hook was set, thinking like, holy crap, they're real. They're not just funny and quirky and weird. They're real. This is amazing. So that's what got me.
So when did you make the sort of the jump from being someone who's interested in monsters and Bigfoot to someone who actually, would actually go out in the fields and look for evidence? At what point?
It was 1994. It was my first trip to Bluff Creek, actually. I've always been camping, and I've always deeply enjoyed it, and I went because I loved it. But once the Bigfoot thing got introduced and the idea of field work, occurred to me, I started going camping like I always have, but specifically in Bigfoot spots. And I didn't, of course, back then I didn't realize how many spots are actually Bigfoot spots. So I started going to Bluff Creek every year because it was the most obvious Bigfoot spot, with the initial intent of trying to locate the Patterson-Gimlin film site. And that was back in '94, and I had no inkling of where it could have been at that point. I just chose a place on the map where a creek called Bigfoot Creek flows into Bluff Creek, and thinking, well, maybe they named it that for that. Who knows why I think it was named that. I went there, and I stumbled across some big prints that might be Bigfoot, might be bear, but I don't know. Don't know what it was. But having found large footprints like that, that kind of stoked the fire even more, and I just kept going and going and going and going and going, and here I am still going.
And what was your when you visited Bluff Creek? What was your impression of Bluff Creek? Did it look anything at all like? I imagine it changed quite a bit since that footage was shot back in 1967. But when you were there, what was your impression of that site?
Well, Bluff Creek in general was a different sort of habitat because most of my camping trips had been the Sierra Nevada mountains, particularly the southern half of the Sierras. And that's just a distinctly different habitat than the far upper northwest corner of California. So I was struck by the number of alders, the number of cedars, that sort of thing, compared to what I was used to seeing in the Sierras. But again, in '94, I didn't actually find the Patterson-Gimlin's film site. Excuse me. I went to a spot that was similar in some ways, and it was interesting because it was a wide open area and, that sort of thing. It wasn't until 97 or 98 or something like that I actually went to the Patterson site and kind of figured out where it was. And over the next year or two or three, I kind of really honed in and figured out exactly where it was, which was kind of cool. I knew the 100-yard stretch of river, but I didn't know what it was. It took a couple more trips going back to figure out exactly what I was talking about. And it was really nice, actually, now that Stephen Stroyford, his Bluff Creek project, has really put the nail in that coffin. We know exactly where it was. We know where Roger started running. We know where the Patterson-Gimlin film subject was walking. We know where the big tree is. We know the root wall. And we know all that stuff now thanks to Stephen Stroyford and his friends. And it's really kind of nice to see, oh, yeah, I was right. That's kind of cool. I wasn't just, blowing smoke up my own butt, thinking that, I was at the spot but not really being there back in 1997 or 8 or something, whenever I first figured out where it was. Kind of cool. It's neat that people have continued doing the work that I used to do because I used to go there a lot, trying to figure out where the site is and stuff. But now that I'm in Portland, I don't need to go down that far. Although I do try to make it down there once a year just for fun.
Now, is that area still a hotbed of activity, or is it just really famous for that one incident?
Oh, no. They're still there. They're totally still there. Some of my best stuff, my closest encounters have come from that general area. There's a lot of good spots, actually, all throughout Bluff Creek. I mean, Bobo's seen him twice there at Louse Camp. He's had 2 sightings at Louse Camp, which is 1.5 miles, 2 miles, or maybe it's 2 or 3 miles from the Patterson-Gimlin film site. I've had trees pushed down at me at the PG site, or, a couple hundred yards from it. I had a huge rock thrown in the river for my sake by one of our hairy friends there, very, very close to the Patterson site, just a little bit downstream from the Bat Box. I've had a lot of weird things happen there. And I think those upper reaches of Bluff, or really upper reaches, if you go to those the headwaters of almost any of those rivers, it's good back there. It's really good back there. Or it can be, if they're wandering through at that right time.
And is the river, is it still, rushing water there? Is it still flowing fairly quickly? Is it still loud, would you say?
It's not that loud, but it's not real deep or anything. There's a pool there, actually, that I force people to baptize themselves in when I take them there. But for the most part, the river's, 6 to 8 inches deep or 10 inches deep. It's about 10 feet across, maybe. It's flowing pretty good, but nothing dangerous by any means. Where there are obstructions, there's louder noise, of course, as the water flows over it. But and of course the river's in a slightly different bed now. It's a different trajectory. It's 20, 30 feet over from where it used to flow. It changed a lot since then because when the film was taken, that giant sandbar was there only because of the horrific flood that came through the area in 1964.
Mm-hmm.
So that sandbar is still there now, but the river, which was flowing just 2 or 3 feet below the level of that sandbar when the Patterson-Gimlin film was taken, the river's eroded its way through that sandbar down to the bedrock now. So it's about an 8-foot difference or so.
Yeah, Cliff, one of the, I don't know if it's a criticism, but I guess one of the things the skeptics talk about is how is it that 2 men on horseback could sneak up on a creature at the river. And people were saying, well, the Russian water is really loud, and so that masks a lot of sound. I mean, what's your take on that? Is that plausible? Is that a plausible theory?
Well, she was down behind a root ball, in the water, supposedly. She's like kneeling in the water, drinking or doing something, when they kind of came around the corner. And that little stretch right below that is a little curvy. So it's possible, especially with those giant root balls here and there left over from that flood in '64, that they probably could have remained more or less out of sight. And, we don't really know what she was doing before that. Like, was she squatting down for the last half hour trying to catch something? There are a lot of salamanders and whatever else is in that creek, in Bluff Creek. Was she drinking? Was she washing? Was she just chilling? Who knows what she was doing? And I think that maybe the focus might be better put on her instead of what they were doing. Roger and Bob were riding quietly up the creek, as quietly as you can on a horse. But what was she doing? That's the difference, because she's an individual. She's just not this, this plastic cutout thing that we're used to seeing on TV or whatever. What was she up to at that time? And then maybe that would actually gain us more insight into how Roger and Bob successfully crept up. Like, what was she distracted with, in other words?
Good point.
Well, guess what, Bruce?
What?
We have a line of telephone calls that has run completely off of my screen.
Really?
So I guess the question is, do we want to start taking callers and limit them to like a minute?
I think we have to, Billy.
Okay. That's what we're going to do, folks. So if you're hanging on the line, I'm going to bring you on the line. I'll announce your area code, and then please keep any questions or comments to a minute just so that we can get to everybody here. So I'm going to start with area code 413, which I believe might be Norma. Is that you, Norma?
Be me. That
Yep.
would be me.
All right.
Hey, Norma.
Hey, Cliff. Hi, Bruce.
Hello.
Hi, Cliff. You remember me, I hope.
Of course.
You camped out
yeah,
with
how
me.
Are you doing? Uh-huh.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. It's nice to be home.
Yeah, so I've heard. I've talked to Tyler. I guess he's in somewhere out west.
Yeah, I'll be seeing him on Saturday. I have to go back to work on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, it's good to talk to you again. Just wanted to give a shout out and say hey.
Hello.
I also wanted to know, I know there's so much controversy about the whole Patty thing. To date, there's no real good evidence whether she, was hoaxed or not.
I disagree. I strongly disagree with that, actually.
With what?
But go ahead. With that, there's no evidence whether she was hoaxed or not.
Okay, well,
I think
what
that
is
there's a tremendous amount of evidence that points to the affirmative, that actually she's absolutely real.
That's what I'm saying. That she's real and not hoaxed. No,
oh,
it
not
doesn't.
hoaxed. Okay.
Right. It doesn't seem like anyone. Yeah, it doesn't seem like anyone can, prove that she's not real. I mean, who would go to all that trouble, to make a female watch anyway? No.
Yeah, she's real. I'm kind of over it, Yeah, she's real.
Yeah. I've heard so much with, on the forums and everything like that. It's like, just, agree to disagree, I guess. I believe she was real.
Well, it's not a matter of belief, I mean, you can look at Bill Munn's work, and you don't have to believe anything. You can look at the data. Yeah,
right.
It's kind of like atoms. I've never seen an atom, but I'm pretty sure they're real. At least the model of it sure works,
Right.
And just because I haven't seen one with my own eyes doesn't mean that the data can't convince me that they're real.
Mm-hmm.
Patty and Bigfoots in general are in fact real.
Right.
You don't need to see one to know it. You just have to look at the information available to support that hypothesis.
Exactly. Yeah, everybody says that, as every time I go out, or everybody that I know, they're like, how do you know they're real, or what makes you think they're real? All this, all the stuff that they ask you, but it's like, well, I may have not seen one, but everything else has happened, and all the reports that are out there, I'll give you 95% of them that are, faked or misidentification or anything else you want to call it. But what about the rest of the 5%?
Yeah, I don't even bother with people in general. Like, I'm not worried about proving they're real. I know that they are. I want to know what they are. If anybody doesn't want to believe, that's cool. That's fine. That actually makes the Bigfoots a little safer. I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
In the meantime, I'm going to be over here learning about something that I know is there.
All right. I agree.
Yes, I agree.
All right,
well.
Norma. Sorry to cut you short, but I got to get
That's
to all
okay.
these other ones.
Wanted to say hi to Cliff again.
All right, I'll
Take
leave
care,
you
Cliff.
Thanks for calling in, Norma.
Take it easy, Norma.
I'll leave you on the line so you can listen.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and the next caller is from the 276 area code. You're on the air.
Hello, Billy.
How you doing?
You know who this is?
Who is this?
This is your favorite redneck, Gary.
That sounds like Gary down there in, well, I can't use that word on the air.
Extreme Southwest Virginia.
Extreme Southwest Virginia.
I just had a real quick question for Cliff, but I kind of was listening to the show, and I figured out, how you could get more phone calls in. If you was to limit Bruce to about a minute, you could get a lot more phone calls in, Billy.
Thanks, Jerry. I think that is up, actually.
Just a real quick question for Cliff. Traveling with the show that he does through all the different environments and things through different states, just a quick question. I just wanted to, I'm pretty familiar with the flora and fauna here in Virginia because this is where I grew up. I've been to other places, California and other places, but this is primarily where I do my research and stuff at. And I was just wondering if the differences between different wild foods and things like that impact areas where he may look for Bigfoot, or how that may change from place to place.
Well, when I go to a place, I already know most likely that there's some Bigfoots around there somewhere. So when I get to an area, I look for viable habitat. As far as the kind of food resources that are available, I don't worry so much about that. I look where the animals are because the animals tell me that there is food. I don't really need to know what the food is, but they tell me that there is food in that area. A big ungulate population or rabbits or just whatever it is, the coyotes, a bunch of stuff in a certain area is going to tell me that there's plenty of food there. Food is pretty plentiful, especially if you have, the appetite of an animal, basically. Everything from worms to edible plants are around, and all that stuff would be utilized by Sasquatches. So when I go to a spot, it really depends what else is going on. But really looking for thick woods, or it doesn't really matter what kind of woods either. Hardwoods seem to hold more variety of life than like the evergreen stuff does. Kind of blown away by the eastern forest in a lot of ways. But, in South Dakota, wide open plains with these deep pockets of woods in between on the river valleys. Well, that's where I look, because that's where the cover is, that's where the food's going to be, and that's where the water's going to be. It always comes down to those three things: food, water, cover. Once I figure out those spots, I put my boots on the ground, and then I start looking for strategic terrain and choke points. And that's basically it. It's not exactly rocket science, and it's nothing that any naturalist or hunter doesn't already know. It's just applying it to a much higher intelligence and kind of relaxing about it a little bit,
I've heard, several things where people say that there's not enough food sources in the arboreal forest here in America to feed.
They're wrong.
A large. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, Native Americans were in this country way before the first Europeans ever set foot here. They survived here. If they can survive here, I'm fairly confident that, a primate with intelligence can survive here.
Well, just look at the number of bears. If Grover Krantz is right, and there's 100 times as many bears as Bigfoots, there's more than enough food around for that sort of thing. And bears right now, in my opinion, kind of earn the top-notch omnivore award, in North America. But really, Bigfoots are, because they're so much smarter, and they have better hands for a lot of different situations, as opposed to the claw bear sort of thing, where they don't have the cool thumbs and can grab things and be all smart about stuff. If bears can survive here, Bigfoots can, because bears and Bigfoots in my opinion, have a very similar dietary thing going. I think that the best model for Bigfoot diet is if you take bear diet, combine it with pre-white contact Native American diet without the cooking. I think if you took those two things, put it together, we're looking at what Sasquatches eat.
I'm kind of big into wildlife survival. You can ask Billy, there's a lot of stuff in the woods that I'll eat that people just kind of look at you strange about. But, I'm 100% confident that, there's enough food here to support them. But, it helps when people like you guys get out there and say, yes, it's real. And I just want to thank you for, what you're doing for the Bigfoot community in general.
Well,
it's
thank
added
you.
a lot
honestly,
of
I'm just kind of doing what I'm doing anyway, but now I'm on TV, which is, takes a little bit of the authenticity away in some ways, like what I normally would do, because I have cameras and I've got a job to do. But I'm still just doing what I do, and I'm glad that you enjoy what I do, and thank you very much for not only tuning into the show, as ridiculous as it can be at times, but also, following my blog and website and reading about what I'm up to. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, appreciate what you guys are doing. Billy, that's all I got. Brother, you and Bruce, be careful.
All right,
wait to get back in the woods with you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
All
let
right,
me
we'll
ask
see y'all.
you, Billy. Billy, let me ask you, if you've ever been out in the woods with Gary, which I have, he'll just pick up random plants and just tell you to eat them.
Yeah, he definitely will. There's no doubt about that. Now,
sorry, I'll stick to my Oreo cookies.
All right, let's get to area code 315. You're on the air.
Hello?
Yes, we hear you.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Who is this?
Well, let's just say Sean. How's that? That
All
work?
right. All right, Sean, you got a question or comment for Cliff?
Yeah, I do. How you doing, Cliff?
I'm all right today. How are you doing?
Good. The reason I'm using Sean is past few years up in my neck of the woods here, hearing things and, a lot of odd things going on. A couple pictures up here, but the minute you tell somebody, you're nuts. So I stopped talking about it to anybody, but just was wondering, how far up New York have you ever been? As far as
I've been to the Catskills and then northern New York, like Whitehall.
Whitehall. Okay, we're further up. We're right up on the Canadian border up here. But
I think the further north you go, the better it's going to be over there. Yeah.
Well, you
certainly live in good habitat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's we got about 35 acres right here of our own property. A lot of swamp back here, but didn't really think much of it. Just little bits of odds and ends stuff. But there's a lot of stuff's been going on. But once I saw your show there and started seeing these wood knocks you do, and never knew anything about it till I watched the show. But I went out back, and lo and behold, I had a big cedar log. I smacked this tree, and swear, back there in that swamp, something come back with 2 knocks. And that's happened on more than one occasion. Sometimes I'll get a knock, then sometimes I'll get 2 knocks. Last time I did it back here, I got 2 knocks back, and it was dead quiet for about an hour. I was sitting on the porch. I went down and I knocked on this tree. I got 2 knocks back, and then all of a sudden, all hell broke loose. These 2 things back there started screaming at first. First, it was just this loud screams, and then, but there was 2 of them. And then all of a sudden, it turned from a big scream to, just like talking, basically just, I don't know the word to describe it, chatter or what it was, but definitely it wasn't a coyote. We've got those out here, but I did have a couple of your guys that I did contact, came up a few times. Twice actually.
Your guys? What do you mean?
BFRO.
Oh, BFRO. Okay, yeah. I'm not BFRO, but okay. So I know some people in it.
Okay. Well, maybe they never got the information to you, but I
always like to say that I'm not a BFRO member, though I play one on TV.
Okay, gotcha. Got you. But no, just was just letting you know there's an open invitation up here. But in no way, shape, or form would I want to be on the TV show. Would I want my name out there? Like I said, I
feel the same way
people
sometimes.
They think I'm nuts up here. But so I just stopped talking about it. But we do have some.
Well, then here you go, Sean. This is what you need to do. You knocked on somebody's door and they answered. Is the bottom line. But now, what are you going to do with that? You know they're there. Okay, so there's a lot of choices, and all of them are valid. So you need to decide now that you know that they're probably around sometimes, you just want to hang out with them, that's totally cool. You want to try to learn a little bit more about it, get some interaction going, that's cool too. Maybe you want to start documenting it. I would get a journal and start writing things down. What's out of place? What animals did you hear? What's the weather like? Start taking some notes and start participating in amateur science, basically. And then you can start learning patterns, and maybe you're going to find out that they're here being your house, that they're at your pad every March, but they're utterly absent in June through August. And that's valuable information. That's valuable information for yourself and other researchers in the area. That's what I would encourage you to do. Take the next step. They're there. Now what? Yeah.
Oh, I have been doing that, but I did notice every snowstorm I'll go out there just out of curiosity, but there's nothing out there, as far as tracks or anything. So what's your belief as far as these things moving out of a snowy area? I don't think that there's a lot of food in the snow, so I don't see any reason for them to go there. I think most of their trip is basically eating and staying out of sight and trying to entertain themselves. So if there's food around in the snow, okay, look for them there. But for the most part, except in those places where they can't avoid it, look below the snow. That's my opinion. Here in Oregon, where I live, the tops of the mountains are all snowed in right now, and I don't think that they're hanging out up there for great extents of time. They might cruise through there, they might go in there for whatever reason, but I think that you'll find more animal life in general at the snow line, and that's where I would look for them, especially when the snow line starts receding. But back where you are, Adirondacks, there's some good peaks in the Adirondacks. If there's no snow on the bottom but snow on the top, look at the snow line. That's my opinion. And it seems to hold true in the spring when the snow line's receding, because as the snow line recedes, it melts into the ground, and that actually triggers a lot of the seeds from the previous year to start growing. So you have all these highly nutritious little green plants coming up, and that's where the deer and other herbivores are feeding. And therefore, I think the Sasquatches are feeding there as well. Not only on the deer and herbivores, but also on the things that the deer and other herbivores eat. So that's what I think of the snow. Okay.
All right. Very good.
Well, I appreciate it. Like I said, now you got an email I can probably find online, right?
Yeah, NorthAmericanBigfoot@gmail.com.
All right. Well,
be patient. I have over 600 emails right now.
Oh. Well, all right. Well, maybe I'll refrain. I'll check back. If you end up slow, I'll send something through. But like I said, if you're ever up this way, this would be a nice place to look at. The St. Lawrence River is right across the street, and Canada's right on the other side of that river. So we're out of the mountains, but it's lowland swamp, a lot of woods up here. But definitely interesting.
All right,
Bob. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks, John.
All right. You got anything, Bruce, before I continue with these calls?
No, let's. There's a lot of impatient people waiting to get in, so
I know.
Let's keep.
Cliff, you brought them out of the woodwork, my friend.
Yeah, that's good and bad, isn't it?
All right, we have a caller from
I'll stay on afterwards. I know it won't be recorded, but as long as you guys want, I'll hang out. So.
It'll go into the archive. So, caller from the 615 area code. You're on the air.
Yeah, hey. This is Alex. I'm down in Nashville, Tennessee, and I actually camped out at a Spence Field about 10 or 15 years ago, and we had something graze the tent and had a big argument it was a bear or something. So I just saw that Smoky Mountains show and thought it was interesting. The question I had was, have you guys tried to, sort of like a deer hunter, maybe mask your scent or something like that? I noticed that, to maybe kind of get stuff in closer where you might think that the Sasquatch is or whatever.
I don't bother masking my scent, although that's one of the most popular questions asked of me on email or otherwise. Because, every good hunter knows that deer can smell you a mile away and all that other stuff. But generally speaking, primates like Sasquatches and human beings and other apes in general don't have a fantastic sense of smell. And you can actually tell that morphologically by looking at them. And I think of the animals that you normally associate with having a tremendous sense of smell. Dogs, deer, bear. Every one of those animals has a long snout. That's because the olfactory nerves, to have a good sense of smell, you have to have a lot of olfactory nerves. And so you have to have a lot of nasal cavities, and that's why they have elongated snouts, is so there's a lot of pockets for the air to get into and touch against those nerves so they can smell things well. Well, look at the Sasquatch. Report after report after report say that they don't have a muzzle. There's actually a flat nose pushed up against the face in a lot of ways. Not like a gorilla, but more like a flat-nosed human. So therefore, based on every other ape species, including humans, as well as the descriptions of Sasquatches, there's no reason to believe that Sasquatches have a tremendously fantastic sense of smell. Now, of course, their sense of smell is going to be more attuned than ours. They depend on it more. They're in the wild more. It's not polluted. It's not watered down by civilization, etc. But nonetheless, I don't see a lot of reason to try to mask my scent because I'm not dealing with a bear. But also, I'm not really going out there and being all stealthy either. I'm a firm, because you can do that, and you will see more animals. And, you know, if you want to mask your scent and, like, camo up and, like, sit in a ghillie suit and some blind somewhere for 9 hours, that's cool. Go for it. I don't have the attention span. I'm, like, ADHD about this sort of thing. In fact, I'm HD ADHD. Like, I'm super distracted in high definition. So, like, when I go out to the woods, I want to go do stuff and walk around, and I'm not fooling myself that I'm being silent or stealthy in any way. So why would I try to mask my scent if I'm just being out in the woods camping, more or less, trying to draw them into me? The vast majority of the people who see Bigfoots are campers. Hunters are definitely in the top 5, but they're not number 1. Campers see Bigfoots more. So I'm going to do the thing that increases my odds the most. I'm going to camp, and I'm going to make some interesting noises and see what I can do. Basically, like when I'm out, not on the show doesn't count. You know, we're making TV, we're introducing the general public to Bigfooting. But on my real life Bigfooting, I go out and I just camp. I sit quietly, I move around a little bit, but I'm not really trying to hide myself. You cannot out Bigfoot a Bigfoot, period. And so why would I even try? Now, but I'm not the hunter sort either. But if you're out there hunting deer, you can do some Bigfooting at the same time. By all means, mask your scent because you've got other things to worry about. But Bigfoots are not scent-oriented the same way that deer are. So that's why I don't do it.
That's interesting. I just didn't know that, so I thought that was something that I always kind of wondered about. I'm like, why? But intelligent hunters from all over the country are constantly asking me that. But that's why, really, because Bigfoot don't have the sense of smell that deer do. As far as the thing at Spencerville, that was something that came up. We just went out there in college for overnight, and you know, we had heard there was a lot of feral pigs in that area too. So the guys that were in the tent, we were actually in the shelter. They woke up and thought it was a bear, and they swore that something grazed their tent up high. So who knows? We actually had seen a mother bear in her cub, but that was down below in Cates Cove. So. But it was, I really like you guys' show. I want to say that, too, and get a lot of good information. I think it's really exciting because I like to do a lot of outdoors, hiking, stuff like that around Savage Gulf, which is a little southwest of the mountains.
Definitely thank you for watching the show. And also just thank you for wanting to learn more about Sasquatches as well.
It's really cool.
I think it's really, really important to learn about these things. And I know the show's not made for Bigfooters necessarily, but hopefully some good information leaks out of there accidentally sometimes to the general public. So we can get away from the I'm monster Bigfoot into I'm the super passive hanging out Bigfoot.
That's cool. Well, thanks for taking my call.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for calling.
Yeah.
All right, we're getting some interesting questions here. That's great.
Hey Philly, just before we go on, I know that one or two people in the chat room have taken umbrage to Cliff's use of the term Bigfoots, plural.
Okay.
So, Cliff, did you want to talk about your choice of Bigfoots versus Big Feet?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, foot and feet are connected because feet is the plural of foot. But I'm not talking about their feet. I'm talking about them. And considering that the American public has been introduced to Sasquatches as Bigfoot, I really want to drive home the fact that it's not one individual, because that's probably the most commonly misunderstood thing about the whole phenomenon by the general public. All the time, have you find them yet? You know how many people have asked me that? This is ridiculous. You find him yet? I'm on media appearances. Like I was on Fox and Friends with that blonde guy, whatever his name was, and he was talking about, people see him in Florida, people see him where they're not, like, no wonder you don't think they're real. It's not a him, it's not a her, it's a them. So even though it might be grammatically correct to refer to Sasquatches in the singular, even though you're speaking about them in a plural. Like, I see 4 Bigfoot over there. Oh my gosh. I will continue to use the term Bigfoots to drive it home, even if it's grammatically incorrect. I want to make sure that the layperson understands that there's more than one of these things. It's like I said, the biggest misunderstanding in the general public. And if I, as a teacher, an articulate person who's pretty conscious of grammar, am choosing to be incorrect about something, it's got to be for a good reason, and that's what I'm doing. I say Sasquatches instead of Sasquatch, and I say Bigfoots instead of Bigfoot. And big feet, in my opinion, wouldn't be correct anyway, because I'm not talking about their feet. I'm talking about them.
All right, before
they
we
can
go
take
off
umbrage.
the air,
that's cool with me. I like that word.
before we go off the air, I just want we're gonna continue in archives, folks. So if I didn't get to your questions, I apologize. I'm going to try to get to them in the archives, and we're getting ready to lose our live. So just wanted to thank everyone for tuning in live tonight. Thank you for your questions. If anyone's still on the line, stay on the line. I don't think that'll turn off. I will get to your call if possible. So thanks everyone, and sorry to interrupt you, Cliff.
No worries. Business is business.
That's it. Okay, Bruce, I'm going to get to this next call. We have a caller at the 413 area code. You're on the air.
No, that would be me.
Oh, that's you? I'm sorry. Sorry about that, Norma.
That's okay.
Somebody different.
I'm still...
All right, let's get to area code 614. You're on the air.
What's up, guys? How you doing tonight?
Oh, I know who this is.
Yeah, it's the Foot Trackers.
Yeah.
We're just listening in. I don't want to waste your time.
You're not a waste of our time. Come on now.
Well,
You're never a waste of our time.
We're just listening in.
Mike Killen, on the other hand, Mike Killen, on the other hand, is a waste of our time.
Oh.
He says that now that we're off live, so. All right, I'll put you guys back on hold.
Good program tonight, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Even
Eric.
with the trouble.
We'll go try. All right, let's get, I believe this is Jeffrey Thomas.
Hey, Billy, this is the Shadow. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, I was just kind of listening in. I was on Skype, but I do have a question for Cliff since I'm on. With the advent of the show and his capability of going all over the country, has your opinion of East Coast Bigfooting changed as compared to, because I know a lot of West Coast guys are just diehard West Coast, especially the Pacific Northwest. Is your opinion changed of the East Coast? Which do you think is a better habitat? Or, not necessarily better, but what is your opinion of East Coast Bigfooting?
Well, I can't say my opinion has changed because I knew that they were back there. I knew Bigfoots were there. So my opinion hasn't really changed in that sort of way, and honestly, I don't even remember what my opinion might have been. I'm constantly learning. I'm not an expert. The more I learn, the more I change, the more I adjust, that sort of thing, But now that I've had the chance to pop all over the country and look at stuff, I'm finding that the type of terrain doesn't matter so much. It's the kind of stuff that they like. They like thickly wooded areas. They like little nooks and crannies to go hide in. They like river bottoms. They like a lot of food in the area. It doesn't really matter what any of those things look like specifically, but that's what they like. I will say that I think in some ways it might be easier to Bigfoot east of the Rockies because there's just less habitat. And I know there's a tremendous amount, but let's take western Pennsylvania as an example. Western Pennsylvania, you can look at Google Earth or Google Maps or whatever you want, and then find chunks of forest that are like 3 to 5 miles wide and maybe the same or a little longer tall. And those chunks of forest are connected to all the other ones by these little green belts. Well, it's those chunks of forest you want to look at. So that's where you want to start, basically. And that's true of a lot of states out in the east. A little less so in places like West Virginia, where it's so amazingly wooded everywhere. But if you can find those big chunks in places like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Virginia in a lot of spots, or, for that matter, not Georgia, because Georgia's crazily wooded, but you get the idea, like North Carolina and stuff. You know where to look. Whereas in the Pacific Northwest, where I am, pretty much everywhere you look is good habitat. And how do you narrow that down when they could be anywhere? How do you narrow that down? Well, on the East Coast, because of deforestation over the last 300 or 400 years, that's a little easier in some ways to narrow it down. They're certainly there. I never had any doubt that Sasquatches were back there once I actually started learning about the subject. It's only the uneducated or the unread that don't think Bigfoots would live on the East Coast. And that's cool. There's a lot of people who don't look into the subject, and they're, we have to be patient with them. But I have great respect for the East Coast Bigfooters. I think that they have a lot to work with. And I think in some ways, like I said, it might actually be a little easier to kind of narrow down your search back east. Having said that, I think there's more Bigfoots out west. I think that just the tremendous amount of land, most of which is uninhabited, offers more habitat for Bigfoots to be unmolested by humans. I think there's more Bigfoots out here, but they might be a little easier to kind of zoom in on back east.
All right. So thank you for that question there, Shadow.
Not a problem. Shadow. I'll see you guys in a few weeks.
All right, buddy.
Thank you, man.
All right, and let's get to area code 540. You're on the air.
Billy?
That sounds like Allison.
It's me. I'm just listening. I couldn't get any sound tonight, so I'm just listening in.
All right. I'll put you right back in there until we hope we'll probably wrap this up here soon. I don't want to keep Cliff too long.
Yeah, Allison's always complaining about something, Billy.
Mainly Bruce. Mainly Bruce.
Cliff, can you hear the love?
I love Bruce.
That's all I ever hear.
I love Bruce.
All right, Allison, we'll put you back in there.
All right.
I love you too, Allie.
All right. And this here's the Bigfoot Encyclopedia, Henry May.
Finally, we've been waiting almost to that daggum hour.
So is everybody.
Well, I just wanted
Did you say dadgum?
Yes, I did.
That's awesome. Thank you, Henry, for that alone.
Hey, Cliff, how's it going?
It's going great, man.
I just wanted to kind of touch back on the point about Bigfoots. I used to have a major problem. I used to have a major problem with it, but I kind of just let it go. I said, well, okay, let them be grammatically incorrect. And I know Cliff's a school teacher, and people probably think, well, he should know better. But just forget about it, right?
Well, yeah, and I think I explained my reasons. I wrote a blog entry about it once, and actually I caught wind of you. Actually, I saw your video about that, oddly enough.
Yeah.
I don't usually go internet Bigfooting at all because I don't seek abuse, and there seems to be a lot of people out there who want to abuse me.
Right.
So I don't bother looking on all the blogs and all that stuff anymore. I've got my own thing going, But I happened to catch yours. This is probably about a month ago or something, or 2 months ago. And I saw you, and I saw that you publicly forgave me, Henry, and I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. But yeah, because I'm not stupid, I usually, I should say, have reasons for the weird things I do. Not always, because I'm a weird guy, but, there had to be a reason for it, I figured. And thank you very much for featuring that on that video that I saw.
Mm-hmm. I got you. Well, hey, I just thought I'd call in and kind of give you all that heads up and everything.
All righty, Henry. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks for calling in.
It's always a pleasure to speak to you, Henry. Thank you.
Yeah, be careful, Cliff.
Not too careful. I got to see a Bigfoot.
All right, and then we got one more caller hanging in here from the 845 area code.
Hey, am I on the air?
Yes, you are.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good.
Yeah, my name's Gary. I wanted to ask Cliff regarding the show. is there any possibility that they're going to be changing the format or shaking up the formula a little bit for the next season?
Well, I hope so. It's not really up to me, of course. All I can do is whine and complain and kind of bitch about it. But and you know, I get listened to a little bit. But really, formulas are safe. Put yourself in the place of a production company. You know, you're given a couple $100,000 to make a product. You know, and I don't know how much it costs to make a show. I'm guessing somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 to make one episode. And I don't know that, but that's what I'm guessing. Because there's a lot of people getting paid. I mean, we have 16 people on the road. There's post-production. There's their bosses. There's the Animal Planet. I mean, it costs a lot of money to do this. So you're a production company who lives in fear of being canceled all the time. In this case, it's ping pong, right? So you want a safe thing where you know that you're going to film everything you need. You know, so every episode has the drive-up scenes of the town hall. We've got the town hall meeting. We have the 3 different witnesses or whatever. We have local flavor. We have 2 night investigations. We have this and that. And they're like slots. And those slots serve to make sure that we're filming enough for a show. Now, how those get interwoven isn't up to me or the cast or anybody in the field. It's really up to the people in post-production, the editors. Yeah. And obviously they're not out in the field. They're actually editing things while we're out in the field. They're like 3 or 4 episodes behind trying to piece these things together into coherent storylines. So our guys who were filming that aren't in post-production. So they can't look over the shoulder and say, no, that we filmed this different, so we could do this different. And that's the thing. The show's very formulaic because there's a breakdown in communication between the field and post is kind of what it comes down to. And they do speak all the time. They you know, Chad and the showrunners and the story producers and stuff, they have frequent email contact with post-production. But they're not there is the bottom line. And you can only communicate so much on email or phone. You can't say, hey, no, we did film that. I'm sorry, go ahead. What?
Yeah, the show and the formula that they've got now, it seems to work really well. I was just curious because, you know, sometimes when you add a little, you know, change to and shake things up a little bit, it keeps it interesting. You know, my family and I.
Well, I'm all for that. And actually, there's a couple episodes coming up that I know will be very different. Kind of, I guess, like pet babies, of the producers. We went to Fouke, Arkansas, you know, Legend of Augie Creek land. And that one is going to be different from what I understand. But again, we want it to be different. We've actually endeavored since the beginning of this run. I'm still on the same run. Like, I call it a run when I'm out filming a series. And I get like a week off every 5 or 6 weeks or something. And that's currently where I am. I'm off right now. But, like, we started this run in August. And I still have 3 more episodes to film. I got to leave Saturday to start filming them. And I think, let's see, next week would be Illinois. The week after that, I think, is Vietnam. And that brings us up to December. But we've been trying to introduce different variations on the format since last fall. Mm-hmm. But it's a matter of communication and setup and editing and a lot of other things. So we've been trying to really mix up the format. I'm sorry, say it again, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, for what you're doing, the format seems to be working really well.
Yeah, we're trying to mix it up. We really are trying. It's just a matter of, like, can we get the editors to do that? Because they're 20-somethings, you know. I'm sorry, what?
I'd like to see the show keep going, and you know, maybe, you know, changing from time to time. And
me too.
The Australia episode was a nice change, and it was very well done.
That was one of my favorites, to be sure. You know, Australia was phenomenal. Great Bigfoot habitat, weird things I've never seen before, like giant bats flying down the middle of the street, like 6-foot wingspan. A beach culture, but there's Bigfoot's right there, half hour in from the beach. The water's 70 degrees. There's sharks out offshore. You can see the shark nets that they put up to protect the beaches. The chicks were totally hot. And then there's, like, the coffee was phenomenal. The beer was great. Man, what a great place.
Yeah, it's
I love
Australia. We were watching the episode and thinking to ourselves, after watching you guys out there, that's a place to visit. that's definitely a place.
Oh yeah, it is.
The bucket list.
Yeah, for sure. We were about an hour south of Brisbane, but and that weird interaction that I had where I was clapping and the things were clapping back at me, that was actually north of Brisbane. That was north of Brisbane, about 45 minutes.
Well, very, very cool. Hey, real quick, I don't want to keep you guys long. And Billy, am I the last caller on the line?
Yes.
Okay, so real quick, Cliff, I just wanted to give you and the rest of the team a big shout out. I was at the New York Dutchess County Town Hall meeting. I guess that was season 2, I believe. And you and the team were extremely gracious with everyone that was there, with taking pictures, and I was really impressed by the team and how well they went out of their way to accommodate children, to talk to them, and hear them out, and it was a very family-orientated, very positive experience that I had going and taking part in that episode. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and the reason we're like that is because, speaking for myself at least, I can't speak for anybody else, but I know that the reason I'm there is you guys, the fans, my fellow Bigfooters. I'm going to spend as much time as I can until everybody's more or less satisfied, and then I get to go away. You guys are why I'm here. I'm not going to forget that, and thank you.
Yeah, well, I was there firsthand. I saw it. I just wanted to say that just get it out there that you guys do that. When little kids are there, you make sure they sit in front, that they're accommodated, that you take pictures with them. I thought it was really, really cool, and I was glad to see that and take part in that. So thank you.
No worries. We're not nearly as evil as the internet haters might make you think.
Yeah, no. Yeah, like that. Certain guys out there knocking you guys, but you're doing a good job, and not for nothing, you're the only ones out there that have been able to bring this thing to the American living room, so to speak, and making it topical to talk about. A lot of people out there claim to be doing that, and they haven't done it. So kudos to you guys for doing a great job. So thank you.
Thank you for watching.
All right. Take it easy, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bruce, do you have anything before I get to some of these questions that were sent to me in the chat?
Nope.
Okay. Cliff, Norma had a question. She wanted to know if you use night vision or FLIR when you're out doing your own Bigfooting.
I mostly use FLIR. I have night vision, but I find that FLIR is easier to pick out the mammals, so I mostly do that. But I do have both.
Gotcha. Okay. Spin Dave says, when you go to a Bigfoot habitat, have you noticed whether the presence of Bigfoot influences presence of other large carnivores and omnivores?
I've heard both ways. I know John Freitas wouldn't even look at a spot unless he found bear sign, but I've also heard people say that when Bigfoot's around, the other large mammals move out. So I don't know which one to believe because I've seen both at this point. So I don't know.
Okay. Carla Daniel said, do you randomly choose a place to go, or is there usually a sighting associated with the place?
On the show, there's always background stuff, so we can build a show around it. But in my own personal Bigfooting, I might check out an area where there's been some activity, but the best spot I have, I call it the Salmon Huckleberry Bog. The best spot I have, there's never been a recorded sighting or vocalization or anything out of there. I didn't randomly choose it. I chose it for a number of reasons, and it turns out I was right. There's Bigfoots there.
Very good.
Yeah, I wouldn't say randomly, but there's never been a sighting at my favorite spot, although I've had knocks and calls on 6 different occasions there over the last 4 years. So I don't know. I mean, not randomly. Other than that, I don't need sightings to make me go to a spot. That's for sure.
Yep. Well, I'm the same way. I've went to areas that have never had any reported sightings, and to be honest, I have found things that could indicate there's activity. So.
Yeah.
Let's see. We had a question from Underground Mechanic. He says, "Is finding Facebook or I'm sorry." I got Facebook on the brain now. Is finding Bigfoot going to Ontario, Canada?
We don't have any plans at the moment to, but it's certainly if we get another season coming up, because I've got 3 more to film, then I get a little vacation, which will be nice.
Yeah,
nice to be Cliff again for a while. But if they pick up another run after that, we don't know. Like, there's no plans at all to go anywhere because that hasn't happened.
Okay. All right.
But the next 3 episodes, none of them are in Ontario. I can say that.
Okay. Brian Jeffries says there was a California picture that came out today. Does Cliff think that's a Squatch or a rock?
Oh, I was on Facebook a little while ago posting something about doing this gig right here, like the Sasquatch Watch of Virginia deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw something, and somebody asked, is this a Bigfoot or rock? I don't know where the picture I saw came from, though. Again, I don't pay attention to most of that stuff.
Right.
Because I only have so much time, and as you can probably imagine, most of my life is Bigfooting right now, no matter what. And
right.
I've been home for today's Tuesday, right? I got home Sunday night.
Wow.
I haven't been home really in about 6 weeks.
Wow.
I did the gigs. I did some college appearances. I did a thing for Fleer out in Orlando, Florida. Came back. I did the Jeff Probst show, some daytime talk show that's going to be on TV this coming Thursday with Bobo and Renee. I got home Thursday night. Friday, I did Derek Randall's expedition up in the Olympic Peninsula. I got home Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I don't care. Pardon me, and it's a sin and everything, I know, but I kind of don't care because today was spent replacing my rain gear because I got to leave on Saturday.
Yeah,
I've got other things to worry about, whether that thing's a rock or not. And if you can't tell if it's a rock, then the picture's not good enough anyway.
That's my philosophy, Cliff. I get people that send me, they'll email me or whatever, photos and stuff. I'm sorry, if you have to draw a circle around it, don't bother because it's not going to prove anything to anybody.
No, unfortunately for us Bigfooters, the Patterson-Gimlin film set the bar very, very high, very, very early in the game.
Yeah.
So other than that, some videos and pictures are definitely worth looking at, and certainly probably a number of them really show Bigfoots. But so what? Can we get such a good picture that everybody sees that it's a Bigfoot or a guy in the suit? That's the kind of thing I'm interested in.
Right.
I like the pictures that it's clearly a guy in a suit or a Sasquatch, period.
Right.
And then let's go from there and figure out what we can learn. But when you're saying, is that a play of shadows? Is that a rock or a Bigfoot? Well, those have value, but there's plenty of people out there who want to tackle that.
Right.
I don't have time. I don't even pay attention to them.
Yeah.
I mean, just because Cliff, Cliff in general is a quiet, introverted homebody, and right now is my time to recharge.
Right.
I don't have time to. I just don't want to make time to figure out if it's a rock or not.
Right. I completely understand. Now, Brandon.
Yeah, I've got so much Bigfoot stuff to do anyway, man.
Right.
So much of my own stuff, let alone other people's stuff.
Exactly. Brandon wants to know if you or the crew has ever ran into any trouble with the Forest Service or any government service while out.
No, never. But we're also permitted to be everywhere we're supposed to be.
Right.
So that's important, I think. We have permission to be everywhere we are, and if we can't get permission, like in the California episode when we had to do the recreation of the, that, oh shoot, what is it, that video where the thing's walking on the ridge. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. Crown Point, I think, and it's in the Marble Mountain Wilderness. We couldn't get permission to film in the wilderness area, so we had to choose another location to do the recreation. So basically, we're allowed to be everywhere we're supposed to be. And as far as conspiracies and governments not wanting us to look into Bigfoots and stuff, I don't really buy into that. I mean, they can't even balance the budget, let alone control Sasquatches. The government is utterly incapable of governing right now. How can they possibly be capable of all these conspiracy things?
Bruce, who could he be talking about who can't balance the budget?
I don't know, Billy. I couldn't even guess wildly on that one.
Dude, they're all the same. You can point fingers in government, but then you're falling into their trap. They want you to believe somebody else is at fault. They're not taking responsibility no matter where they are in the government.
Right. No, I agree with that. I mean, there's...
And at the same time, neither are we. We need to
right.
get out there and vote and take control as well.
That's correct. All right,
Now,
do you got anything else for Cliff, Bruce?
Yeah, I actually had a question. Cliff reportedly has a very extensive cast collection. So I just wanted to ask him
That's
about
correct.
that, how he got started with it, and why he thinks he must think very highly of track casts as more conclusive evidence than what we've had out there. So Cliff, what is it about these castings that that interest you so much that you have such a large collection?
They represent hard evidence that the Sasquatch is real, because people will often say there's no hard evidence, but they don't even know what they're talking about, because they don't. First of all, what is hard evidence? Well, as Rene DeHinden used to say, let me hit you over the head with this cast, and you tell me if it's hard. There is hard evidence for Sasquatches, and it's in the form of casts. These footprint casts, even though they've been collected as far back as, well, the earliest one that I've personally seen with my own eyes is 1958, although there's a rumor of another one from the late 40s that I would love to get a hold of. And then there's that cop up in like Bremerton or somewhere like that in northern Washington that was collecting footprint casts and kind of overlap with J.W. Burns in the 20s and 40s and stuff. But the oldest cast that I've seen is 1958, and the most recent cast that I've acquired in my collection, I got an orang pendant cast that was cast in January, but beyond that one, this is July from Oklahoma. And they all show the same anatomical features. They show the same differences from human prints in the same places, but they all show them. No matter who cast them or where they cast them, these things are the same. They represent the same animal kind of foot making these things. That's significant. And not only because again, I don't care about proving Bigfoots are real. I know they're real. I'm not going to prove it to you. I don't care. I don't care what other people think. I'm not trying to prove they're real, but beyond the ability to actually do that, they can tell us more about what Bigfoots do. The Blue Mountain evidence, for example, is a great data set. And a lot of people don't buy the Paul Freeman stuff, but a lot of people don't know a lot about the Paul Freeman stuff. The Paul Freeman stuff actually is very, very well. I should say the Blue Mountain stuff is very good because Paul Freeman didn't cast them all. Dar Addington and Wes Summerlin and John Myanzinski cast a lot of these things in the Blue Mountains. But when you look at the entire Blue Mountain data set, you're basically looking at like 5 or 6 individuals at the most. At the most. And the Blue Mountains is a really, really big area. So footprint finds can tell you the movements of individual animals within their territory. And that is interesting because that's something that can help me encounter a Sasquatch in the future. I mean, I hate to be all Cliff-centric and everything, but like whatever information somebody brings to me, it's either a story or it's going to help me somehow. And frankly, footprint data helps me because I can see what individuals were where at what time of year. That's cool. The Bluff Creek data set actually indicates that Patty's footprints might have been found as many as 6 or 7 times before she was filmed. Well, that tells us about distribution. That tells us about family groups. That tells us about territory range. That might tell us about feeding habits. That might tell me about where they're moving and when and what corridors they're choosing to move through. That's why I get excited about footprint evidence.
And have you ever shown these castings to people who, in light of the fact that it's physical evidence, they still say, oh well, I don't think Bigfoot is real. Have you ever encountered that?
Of course, because superficially, these giant footprints look like people prints, kind of, but really, really big. But again, superficially, they look like that. And at a superficial glance, people are going to say, oh, that could be faked, because they wouldn't understand how difficult it would be to fake them, especially in the circumstances in which they were found. So, the whole Bigfoot thing comes down to educating the public, because the public is super ignorant of Bigfoots. And a lot of people, when I say ignorant, and I don't mean stupid, I mean they just are totally unaware, or even worse, they ignore it. And ignore is the root word for ignorance. They ignore what's out there. They don't want to see it. It's like what Grover Krantz wrote in his book. Some people say, I'll believe it when I see it. He pointed out that for a lot of people, it's I'll see it when I believe it.
Right.
Wow.
Well, it's been an interesting talk tonight.
Yeah, it definitely has been.
And
it's
Cliff,
always my pleasure.
I'm glad that you were able to get on the show. Now, can I have you to do me a favor?
Of course.
Could you do me a favor and try to talk Bobo into coming on the show with me one night?
Yeah, I can tell him that it would be good for him to do.
But
you know, it's like Bobo has a mind of his own or something.
All you got to do is tell him that. Just tell him to remember it was the two guys that bright lighted him in Washington State.
I won't tell him that because you want him to do it.
There's a story behind that, Cliff, but we'll have to save that for another day.
There is a story, Billy.
Oh boy. Well, I guess the only question I have for you, Cliff, before we let you go, is it really as hard as everyone thinks it is to deal with Matt Moneymaker?
Sometimes Matt can be a true pleasure because he's intelligent and witty and he's ridiculous. But at the same time, he's extremely strong-willed. Obviously, he's arrogant. I think that we all are on the show, including myself. And Matt might be a little bit more arrogant than me. So yeah, it's difficult to deal with everybody. It's like if you take a 3-month road trip with your wife, you're going to get in arguments, right? And you like your wife, hopefully. But yeah, Matt's a pain sometimes, but other times he's quite a pleasure to be with because he is an interesting, intelligent guy. And I imagine that he would say the same thing about me. That yeah, I'm a pain sometimes, but I'm pretty okay to hang out with sometimes. Well, we do the best we can. The personalities on the show are some of the strongest personalities you're going to run into anywhere. We do the best we can with it, and luckily we get some breaks.
Well, I look at it like this: you guys are spending a lot of time together, and it's just like a family. You're going to have your disagreements. There's going to be days when you just don't want to be with one or the other.
Of course.
Completely understand. Well, Cliff,
yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank
you so much for being on the show. We greatly appreciate it. And, well, thank you so much for all the hard work you're doing.
Anytime, man. I'm doing it anyway. I'm glad I can bring people on my journey with me.
All right. Thank you so much, Cliff, and I'm hoping we can get you on again one of these days later on.
Let me know.
Thanks a lot.
Happy to help you out. Cool. Talk to you guys later.
All right. Thanks, Cliff.
All right. Thanks, Cliff.
All right. That's another show under our belt, Bruce.
It was quite a show tonight, huh, Billy?
It was quite a show. I mean, all the technical difficulties kind of threw us under the bus there for a little bit. I tell you, that was very aggravating.
Yeah, that was. I didn't know if we were going to be back on. To tell you the truth, I mean, we probably didn't even begin the show till close to 9:20.
Yeah,
a lot of time with that.
Yeah,
technical difficulties.
Yeah, it was very aggravating, and who knows? Maybe we'll have to find another venue, but I guess it's the first time we've had any major problems since we restarted the show in February. So.
Yeah, but Billy, it's only we've only been on the air 3 times, so I don't know if that's a good thing.
Oh well, and I don't know what that beeping is in the background, but usually that means trouble. That's what it did right before it disconnected me earlier. So, anyway. All right, well, thank you, Bruce, for being on and helping me out tonight, like always.
My pleasure, Billy.
And thank you to everyone who came on live tonight, called in and listened to the show. Those that listened to the archive, we appreciate each and every one of you. And we will see you next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. See everyone later.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Remember to join us again next Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. We appreciate every one of our listeners. Thank you so much for being here.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, you know, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.